This table is for family. Go out and find a seat." My sister's words cut through the restaurant noise like a knife. I stood there, frozen, holding my purse, watching my entire family settle into the reserved table without even glancing back. That moment, it wasn't new. It was just the loudest echo of a lifetime spent invisible. If you've ever felt like a ghost in your own family story, stay with me. And if this resonates, hit subscribe. Because by the end, you'll understand why walking away from that $3,247 bill was the easiest decision I ever made. My name is Harper. I'm 32 years old, a content writer living in Seattle, and the youngest of 3 sisters. Growing up, I was what my family liked to call the accident baby, born 7 years after my middle sister Claire, 9 years after Maya. My parents never said it to my face, but I heard it enough times in whispered conversations, in the way they'd explain my existence to relatives at gatherings. We weren't planning on another one, but here she is. Here I am. My father passed away when I was 19. Cancer. My mother followed 6 months later. Heart attack, they said, but I think it was a broken heart. When they died, Maya was 28 and Claire was 26. They became the heads of the household, the decision makers, the adults, and I was still just the accident. Let me take you back to when I was 13. It was a Tuesday afternoon in October, and it was raining, the kind of Seattle rain that soaks through your jacket, no matter how waterproof it claims to be. School let out at 3:15, and I stood under the covered entrance with the other kids, waiting for their parents to pull up in minivans and SUVs. One by one they disappeared into warm cars, waving goodbye to their friends. I waited. 3:30 came and went. 4 o'clock. The teachers started leaving, giving me sympathetic looks as they passed. "Your mum coming soon, Harper?" one of them asked. I nodded, forcing a smile. "She's just running late." By 4:30, the parking lot was empty. The janitor was locking up the side doors. I sat on the wet concrete steps, my backpack soaking through, my hair plastered to my face. I didn't have a cell phone yet. This was 2006, and I was only 13. The payphone by the gymnasium ate my 2 quarters without connecting the call. At 5:15 I walked home, 3 miles in the rain. My shoes squelched with every step, and by the time I pushed through our front door, I was shivering so hard my teeth chattered. The house was warm. I could hear music coming from the living room, classical piano, the kind Maya practiced for her recitals. I dropped my soaking backpack in the entryway and walked toward the sound. Maya was in the middle of the living room, en pointe, practicing a ballet routine. My mother sat on the couch, watching with this look of absolute pride on her face. They were laughing about something, completely absorbed in the moment. I stood in the doorway, dripping water onto the hardwood floor. My mother glanced up. "Oh, Harper, you're home. I thought you'd just take the bus like you always do." I didn't take the bus. We lived 3 miles from school, and the bus route didn't come near our neighborhood. She knew that, but she'd forgotten. She'd been so wrapped up in Maya's ballet casting for the school play that she'd completely forgotten to pick up her 13-year-old daughter. I didn't say anything. What was there to say? I just nodded, grabbed a towel from the bathroom, and went upstairs to change. Nobody asked if I was okay. Nobody apologized. By dinner, it was like it never happened. That was the first time I realized I was the overflow, the extra, the one who could be forgotten because I'd figure it out somehow. 4 years later, when I was 17, Claire graduated from the University of Washington. It was a big deal. She'd been on the dean's list every semester, president of her sorority, the golden child who could do no wrong. My parents decided to throw her a graduation party at our house. A huge celebration with catered food, a DJ, and what felt like half of Seattle in attendance. I was excited. I'd just finished my junior year of high school, and I thought maybe, finally, I'd get to be part of something. I spent the week before the party helping set up, stringing lights in the backyard, arranging tables, folding napkins into fancy shapes my mother found on Pinterest. The day of the party, I got dressed in a sundress I'd bought with my babysitting money. I even did my hair, straightened it and pinned it back with the clips Claire had left in the bathroom. I felt pretty. I felt like maybe I'd actually get to celebrate with everyone instead of watching from the sidelines. The party started at 6. By 6:30, the house was packed. College friends, family friends, relatives I barely recognized. Everyone was dressed up, holding champagne flutes, congratulating Claire. I grabbed a plate from the kitchen and started to head toward the living room where everyone was mingling. Maya intercepted me in the hallway. She was 26 then, working as a marketing consultant, wearing a designer dress that probably cost more than my entire wardrobe. She looked me up and down with this expression I'd seen 1,000 times, like I was a stray dog that had wandered into a country club. "Harper, we need you in the kitchen." "I was just going to... The catering staff needs help. Can you refill the appetizer trays and make sure the drinks are stocked?" I looked past her into the living room. I could see Claire surrounded by her friends, laughing, glowing. My parents stood beside her, beaming with pride. "Can't I just say hi to everyone first? I haven't even..." "This is for Claire's college friends and our family friends. You wouldn't understand their conversations anyway." Maya's voice wasn't mean, exactly. It was matter of fact, like she was explaining something obvious to a child. "You'd just be bored. Come on, help out in the kitchen. You're good at that." So I did. I spent the next 4 hours refilling chip bowls, loading the dishwasher, carrying out trays of bacon-wrapped dates and mini quiches. I watched through the doorway as my family celebrated, as they toasted Claire's success, as they danced to the DJ's music. Nobody came to check on me. Nobody said thank you. Around 10 o'clock, when most of the guests had left, I sat alone at the small breakfast nook in the kitchen, eating leftover canapés from the trays I'd been refilling all night. I could still hear laughter from the living room, the intimate gathering of close family that apparently didn't include me. My father walked into the kitchen to grab another bottle of wine from the fridge. He saw me sitting there, still in my sundress, mascara smudged under my eyes from the steam of the dishwasher. "You doing okay, kiddo?" I wanted to scream. I wanted to ask why I wasn't allowed in the living room, why I had to spend my sister's party as an unpaid caterer, why I was always on the outside looking in. Instead, I nodded. "Yeah, Dad, I'm fine." He patted my shoulder and left. That night, lying in bed, I made a decision. When I graduated college, when I had my own achievements to celebrate, I wouldn't let them make me feel like this. I'd demand my place at the table. I'd make them see me. I was so naive. 2 years later, I was 19 and finishing my first year at community college. My father had been diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer 6 months earlier, and the decline was rapid. By April, he was in hospice care at home. My mother, who'd always been the strong one, seemed to shrink a little more every day. He died on a Tuesday morning. I was in class when Maya called. I left immediately, drove home with shaking hands, walked into a house that felt too quiet and too full at the same time. The funeral was 3 days later. I sat between Maya and Claire in the front pew, my mother on Maya's other side. We were the picture of a grieving family, united in our loss, except I'd never felt more alone. The reception after the funeral was at our house. Relatives I hadn't seen in years hugged me, told me how sorry they were, asked how I was holding up. I smiled, thanked them, played the part. Inside, I was numb. After most people had left, Maya and Claire disappeared into my father's study. I was in the living room, picking up discarded napkins and paper plates, when I heard their voices through the door. "We need to go through the estate documents. Mum's in no condition to handle this right now. We'll take care of it. The important thing is making sure everything's in order." I walked to the study door and knocked. "Hey, can I help with anything?" The conversation stopped. The door opened a crack, and Maya looked out at me with red-rimmed eyes that somehow still managed to look impatient. "This is adult business, Harper. We'll tell you what you need to know later." "But Dad was my father too. I should be—" "You're 19. You don't need to worry about estate planning and probate. We've got it handled." The door closed. 6 months later, my mother died of a heart attack. The grief of losing my father had been too much for her body to take. I was still 19, now orphaned, living in a house that felt like a mausoleum. After Mum's funeral, smaller, quieter, somehow sadder, Maya and Claire sat me down at the kitchen table. They had folders, documents, serious expressions. "Okay, Harper, here's what's going to happen," Maya said, sliding a folder across to me. "The house is being sold. Claire and I will handle the sale. After estate taxes and debts, there won't be much left, but we'll split what remains 3 ways. I opened the folder. Inside was a check for $18,000 and a handwritten inventory list. "What's this?" "Your inheritance, the money, plus the items on that list. We've already divided Mum and Dad's personal belongings. That's your share." I scanned the list, a box of Mum's old clothes, things she'd worn in the 90s, outdated and worn. A few photo albums, some with water damage. Dad's old fishing rod, a set of costume jewellery. My throat tightened. What about Mum's engagement ring, and the dining room furniture, and Dad's watch collection? Claire sighed. "We divided things fairly, Harper. Maya got the engagement ring because she's the eldest. I got the dining set because I'm about to buy a house with Marcus, and we need furniture. The watches were sold to help cover funeral expenses. But I didn't get to—" I stopped. Took a breath. "I didn't get to choose anything. You just decided. You were grieving. We didn't want to burden you with decisions." Maya's voice was gentle, like she was explaining something to a child. "We handled everything so you could focus on school and healing. They'd handled everything. They'd divided our parents' life, our family history, without even asking me what I wanted." I stared at the check in my hands, at the list of hand-me-downs and damaged memories, and I felt something inside me crack. That's when I realized I wasn't just the youngest. I was the one they never planned to keep in the picture. 13 years have passed since that kitchen table conversation. I'm 32 now, living in a small but nice apartment in Capitol Hill, making a decent living as a freelance content writer. I've built a life I'm proud of, a career, a friend group, a tiny balcony garden that somehow survives Seattle's grey winters. I've learned to be happy on my own terms. But family? That's been complicated. I still see Maya and Claire. I still show up to birthdays, holidays, the occasional family dinner. Not because I expect anything to change, but because some part of me, the 13-year-old standing in the rain, the 17-year-old alone in the kitchen, the 19-year-old holding that insulting inventory list, still hopes. 6 months ago, it was Maya's oldest daughter's 9th birthday. Lily. She's a sweet kid, and I'm technically her aunt, though I don't see her much. Maya threw a huge party at her house in Bellevue. Bounce house, petting zoo, magician, the whole Pinterest-perfect spectacle. I showed up with a carefully chosen gift, an American Girl doll that matched Lily's interests. $150 I probably shouldn't have spent, but she was my niece, and I wanted her to know I cared. The party was in full swing when I arrived. Kids everywhere, parents clustered in small groups, Maya playing hostess in a white linen outfit that somehow stayed spotless despite the chaos. I found her near the dessert table, arranging cupcakes in a perfect spiral. "Maya, hi. Happy birthday to Lily. Where should I put this?" She glanced at the gift bag, smiled briefly. "Oh, Harper, you came. Just put that on the present table in the foyer." She turned back to the cupcakes without waiting for a response. I wandered through the party, trying to find my place. The adults were all Maya's friends, other moms from Lily's school, her colleagues from work. I didn't know any of them. I spotted my grandmother in the living room, sitting on the couch with Claire's kids clustered around her, and started to head that direction. Claire intercepted me. "Harper, hey, come outside, I need to show you something." I followed her through the sliding glass door to the backyard, where more kids were running through the bounce house. Claire led me to a table set up near the fence, away from the main party area. It had a tablecloth, plates, napkins. It was clearly set up for guests, but it was empty. "You don't mind sitting out here, right?" Claire said, adjusting one of the place settings. "The family table inside is full with Lily's godparents and grandma and all the cousins, but we wanted to make sure you had somewhere nice to sit." I looked through the sliding glass door. Inside, I could see a large dining table set up in Maya's formal dining room. It was full of people: my grandmother, Claire's husband Marcus and their 3 kids, Maya's husband James, Lily's godparents, extended family members I barely knew. They were laughing, passing around appetizers, completely absorbed in their conversations. "But I'm her aunt," I said quietly. Claire touched my arm, her expression sympathetic but firm. "You know what I mean. Immediate family. The kids' table is totally full with Lily's friends, and we couldn't squeeze you in there. This way you'll have a nice quiet spot out here. You can enjoy the party without all the noise." She walked away before I could respond. I stood next to that empty table for maybe 20 minutes, watching the party happen without me through glass doors and patio windows. Kids ran past me toward the bounce house. Parents smiled politely as they walked by, assuming I was just another guest, taking a break from the chaos. Eventually, I sat down at the table by myself. I ate a paper plate of pretzels and carrot sticks. I scrolled through my phone. When it was time for cake, I watched through the window as my whole family gathered around Lily, singing "Happy Birthday." I wasn't invited inside for that either. I left before they finished cutting the cake. Nobody noticed. 3 months later, Claire celebrated her 10th wedding anniversary. I didn't know about the party until I saw the photos on Facebook. Claire and Marcus, surrounded by family and friends at some fancy restaurant. Maya was there, my grandmother, the cousins, even some relatives I hadn't seen since our parents' funerals. I called Claire the next day. "Hey, I saw the anniversary photos. It looked really nice." "Oh yeah, it was great. Marcus surprised me with the whole thing." Pause. I waited. She didn't offer an explanation. "I didn't know you were having a party." "Oh," her voice went carefully neutral. "Yeah, we kept it intimate. Just close family. You understand? Just close family." The words landed like stones. "Right, of course. Maybe we can get coffee sometime, though. Catch up." We never did get coffee. Thanksgiving was 2 months ago. I showed up at Maya's house at 3 o'clock, the time she'd told me in her group text to the family. I'd made a pumpkin pie from scratch, something I'd spent all morning on, and I was actually looking forward to the day. Maybe this year would be different. I walked in with my pie, calling out hellos. The house smelled incredible. Turkey, stuffing, all the traditional scents of the holiday. I followed the noise to the dining room and stopped in the doorway. The table was full. Maya, James and their 2 kids. Claire, Marcus and their 3 kids. Grandma at the head of the table. A few family friends I vaguely recognised. Every chair was occupied and they'd already started on appetizers. Maya looked up and saw me. "Oh, Harper, you made it. I thought you were coming at 4. You said 3. Did I?" She looked genuinely confused, but not particularly concerned. "Well, no worries, we saved you a spot." She gestured toward the kitchen. "Over there. The kids' table was full, so we set up this one for overflow." Overflow, I looked where she was pointing. In the corner of the kitchen, near the pantry, was a card table. It had a single place setting, 1 chair, and a good view of the refrigerator. Nobody at the dining table said anything. Nobody offered to squeeze me in, to pull up an extra chair, to make room. They just went back to their conversations, passing around the cheese board, laughing at some joke I'd missed. I set my pie on the kitchen counter, sat down at the card table, ate my Thanksgiving dinner alone, 10 feet away from my family, listening to their laughter echo through Maya's open concept floor plan. I didn't cry, I didn't make a scene, I just sat there, mechanically cutting my turkey into smaller and smaller pieces, swallowing past the lump in my throat. Around 7, I left. Maya called out a goodbye from the living room. "Thanks for the pie, Harper. Drive safe." I drove home in silence, went straight to bed, and didn't get up until the next afternoon. 2 months later, the call came that would change everything. It was a Tuesday evening, and I was working on a client project when my phone rang. Maya's name flashed on the screen. I almost didn't answer. Our conversations lately had been brief, transactional, emptied of any real warmth. But something made me pick up. "Hey, so we're doing a big family celebration dinner at the Monarch Saturday night." The Monarch. I'd heard of it. 5-star restaurant downtown, Michelin-starred chef, the kind of place where reservations were booked months in advance. Dad's birthday would have been this weekend, and we want to honour him. Everyone's coming, Claire's whole family, Grandma, the cousins, some of Dad's old friends. You should come too. My heart did this stupid little leap. A memorial dinner for Dad. Everyone would be there, everyone including me. Of course, what time? 7 p.m. It's a private room reservation. Dress nice, okay? It's going to be really special. Really. After we hung up, I sat staring at my computer screen, not seeing the words. This could be different. This could be the moment when they finally saw me as part of the family. A memorial for our father. Surely that was sacred enough that I'd be included, truly included. I spent the next 4 days planning. I bought a new blazer, navy blue and perfectly tailored, from a boutique I normally couldn't afford. I got my hair done. I even had my nails painted for the first time in months. I spent hours putting together a gift for the occasion, a photo album of our father, compiled from pictures I'd collected over the years, photos from his childhood, his wedding, moments with each of us as kids. I'd written captions for every photo, little memories and stories. Saturday arrived. I was so nervous I could barely eat. I kept checking the clock, making sure I wouldn't be late. At 6:30 I drove downtown, found parking in the garage near the Monarch, and walked the 2 blocks to the restaurant in my new blazer and uncomfortable heels. The Monarch lived up to its reputation. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Elliott Bay, soft lighting, tables dressed in white linens. The hostess smiled when I approached. "I'm here for the reservation under Maya Thompson," Private room. Of course, right this way. She led me through the main dining room, past tables of well-dressed diners speaking in hushed tones, to a set of French doors at the back. Through the glass, I could see my family already gathered. The private room was beautiful, long table for 16, candles flickering in the centre, a large photo of my father in his younger years displayed on a side table. Everyone was there. Maya and James, Claire and Marcus, all 5 grandkids, my grandmother, several of my parents' old friends. They were standing around the table in small groups, talking, laughing softly. Nobody had sat down yet. I took a deep breath, adjusted the gift bag in my hands and pushed open the door. Hi everyone. Sorry if I'm a bit late. The conversations paused. Heads turned. I saw Maya's expression shift, something I couldn't quite read flickering across her face. She stepped forward, separating herself from the group. Harper. She didn't smile. This table is for family. Go out and find a seat. The words hung in the air like smoke. I stood frozen in the doorway, gift bag dangling from my hand, trying to process what she'd just said. What? But you invited me. Claire moved to stand beside Maya, her expression apologetic but firm. Maya's right. This is the family table. We have a specific head count for this reservation. I looked around the room. 16 place settings, 16 people already present if you counted me. But apparently, nobody was counting me. I'm family, I said, and my voice came out smaller than I intended. Dad was my father too. Harper, please. Maya's voice dropped to a harsh whisper. Don't make a scene. This dinner is for people who were close to Dad, who knew him well, who were there during his final years. You were off at college, starting your own life. This is for those of us who... Who what? I interrupted. Who actually mattered to him? The room had gone completely silent. My grandmother was sitting in one of the chairs at the far end of the table looking down at her hands. Nobody else would meet my eyes. Maybe Harper can sit at the bar? Grandma's voice was quiet, fragile. I'm sure they have seats there. I stood there for what felt like an eternity, but was probably only 30 seconds. 20 people I shared blood with, history with, memories with, all looking at me like I was a stranger who'd walked into the wrong private event. The gift bag felt heavy in my hands. I'd spent hours on that photo album, carefully selecting each picture, writing each caption. I'd wanted to give them something meaningful, something that showed I remembered, that I cared. Okay, I heard myself say, I understand. I turned and walked out of the private room, back through the French doors, past the beautifully dressed tables in the main dining room. I didn't run. I didn't cry. I just walked, one foot in front of the other, with my new blazer and my photo album and my shattered expectations. But I didn't leave the restaurant. Something inside me shifted in that walk from the private room to the main dining area. All those years of being forgotten, overlooked, pushed aside, they crystallized into a single clear thought. I'm done. I turned left instead of heading to the exit and walked to the bar. The bar at the Monarch was elegant, all dark wood and brass fixtures, with a marble countertop that probably cost more than my car. Only a few seats were occupied, a couple on a date, a businessman on his phone, an empty spot at the end where I could see the entire restaurant. I sat down, placed my gift bag on the floor where I wouldn't have to look at it, and folded my hands on the bar. The bartender approached immediately. He was maybe 28, dark hair, kind eyes, wearing the standard black vest and white shirt of the restaurant's uniform. His name tag read, Jake. Evening. What can I get you? I stared at the bottles lined up behind him, their labels blurring together. What's good? That depends, Are we celebrating or forgetting? The question almost made me laugh. What if it's both? He studied me for a moment, then reached for a bottle of red wine from the higher shelf. This is a 2015 Bordeaux, full-bodied, complex, with just enough bite to remind you you're alive. He poured a generous glass. On the house. You're not supposed to do that. Probably not. He slid the glass toward me. Tough night. I picked up the wine, took a sip. It was perfect, rich and warm and exactly what I needed. You could say that. I just got uninvited from my own father's memorial dinner by my sisters. Jake winced. Ouch. Yeah. I took another sip. Turns out I'm not actually family. Who knew? He wiped down the section of bar in front of me, a reflexive action that gave him an excuse to stay close. Family's complicated. That's putting it mildly. But hey, if you need anything tonight, a drink, an ear, or just a damn good meal, I got you. I looked up at him, at this stranger offering kindness when my own blood had just shut the door in my face. Thanks, Jake. That means more than you know. He nodded and moved down the bar to help another customer, leaving me alone with my wine and my thoughts. Through the bar's position, I had a clear view of the French doors leading to the private room. I watched as servers came and went, carrying bread baskets and water pitchers. I imagined my family inside, sitting around that long table, talking about my father, sharing memories I wasn't allowed to be part of. 30 minutes passed. The wine glass emptied, and Jake refilled it without being asked. I scrolled mindlessly through my phone, not really seeing anything, just needing something to do with my hands. Then I looked up and saw them through the French door's glass panels. My family, seated now, menus open, completely absorbed in their own world. Maya was laughing at something James had said. Claire was helping one of her kids with a napkin. Grandma was chatting with the woman next to her. They looked happy, complete, like I'd never even been invited in the first place. Something crystallized in that moment. All those years of showing up, of hoping, of trying to earn my place at a table that was never meant for me. What had it gotten me? A card table at Thanksgiving, an empty patio seat at a birthday party, a shut door at a memorial dinner. I was tired, so incredibly tired of being the overflow. I thought about the photo album in the gift bag at my feet. Hours of work, memories carefully preserved, love poured into every page. They wouldn't even see it, just like they didn't see me. 13 years since my parents died. 19 years since I stood in the rain waiting for a mother who forgot me. 32 years of being the accident, the extra, the one who didn't quite count. When does it end? When do I stop hoping they'll choose me? The answer came swift and certain. Now. It ends now. I turned to look for Jake. He was at the other end of the bar, mixing a cocktail for the couple on their date. I waited until he finished, until he glanced my way with that same kind expression. He walked over. Another glass? Actually, Jake, can you do me a favour? Sure. What's up? My heart was pounding, but my voice came out steady, calm, like I was ordering an appetizer instead of setting fire to every bridge I had left with my family. I need you to send your most expensive dishes to that private room. I gestured toward the French doors. Everything on the premium menu. Wagyu steaks, lobster tails, truffle pasta, the vintage wine collection. The works. Make it a feast they'll never forget. Jake's eyebrows rose. That's easily $3,000. Probably more for a table that size. You want me to put it on your tab? I met his eyes, held his gaze. No, put it on theirs. Jake stared at me for a long moment, and I watched the realization dawn on his face. He glanced toward the private room, then back at me. "You're serious." "Completely." He let out a low whistle. That's bold. That's overdue." I took another sip of wine, feeling the warmth spread through my chest. Not from the alcohol, but from the decision itself. For the first time in 32 years, I was choosing myself. "Can you do it?" Jake leaned against the bar, lowering his voice. "Technically, yeah, I can put in orders for any table. But once it's served and consumed, they're legally responsible for the bill. You understand that, right? This isn't a prank. This is justice," I finished. "This is justice." He studied me for another moment, then nodded slowly. "All right. Give me 20 minutes to coordinate with the kitchen and servers. This is going to be one hell of a meal. Make it memorable." Jake pulled out his tablet, the one servers used for orders, and started tapping. As he worked, he rattled off items under his breath. A5 Wagyu beef, 8-ounce cuts for 16 people, Maine lobster tails, black truffle risotto, caviar service. For wine, we'll go with the 2005 Chateau Margaux. Probably need 4 bottles for that size table. He looked up. "You want dessert too?" "Everything. Don't hold back." "You got it." He tapped a few more times, then showed me the screen. The total sat at the bottom, $3,247.82 before tax and gratuity. Last chance to back out. I looked through the bar toward those French doors one more time. My family was still laughing, still completely unaware that their evening was about to take a very different turn. Maya had her phone out, probably taking photos for her Instagram. Claire was gesturing animatedly while telling some story. They looked like the picture-perfect family. The family that didn't include me. "Send it," Jake hit confirm. "Done. The kitchen's going to think it's someone's 50th wedding anniversary or something. These orders should start coming out in about 15 minutes. "Perfect." I settled back into my seat, cradling my wine glass. "I'll be right here." "You're going to watch?" "Every second." He grinned, and there was something almost conspiratorial in it. "I like your style. Let me know if you need anything else." As Jake moved away to help other customers, I sat at that bar and felt something I hadn't felt in years. Powerful, not vindictive, not cruel, just powerful, like I finally had agency in my own family story. The minutes ticked by. I ordered a small plate of bruschetta, more to have something to do than out of actual hunger. The bar filled up a bit more as the dinner hour progressed, a group of women celebrating a birthday. A few solo diners with business casual attire loosened after long work days. Normal people having normal Saturday nights. Meanwhile, I was orchestrating the most expensive fuck you in Seattle restaurant history. 18 minutes after Jake confirmed the order, I saw the first server heading toward the private room. He was carrying a large tray with what looked like appetizer plates. The caviar service, probably. Another server followed with a wine bottle, the fancy kind that requires ceremony to open. I watched through my wine glass as the server disappeared through the French doors. From my vantage point at the bar, I couldn't see inside clearly, but I could imagine it. The confusion on Maya's face. The server explaining that these were pre-ordered for the table. The family exchanging glances, assuming someone, James maybe, or one of Dad's old friends, had arranged a surprise. 5 minutes later, 2 more servers headed toward the room, carrying trays laden with plates. The Wagyu beef perfectly seared and plated, the lobster tails glistening with butter, the truffle risotto in individual portions. Jake appeared at my elbow. They just opened the wine, $475 a bottle. Worth every penny. The kitchen staff is loving this, by the way. They don't usually get to show off the premium menu on a Saturday night. Usually that's saved for corporate events and proposals. Tell them it's a different kind of proposal. I smiled into my wine. The proposal that I'm done being treated like I don't matter. More servers filed toward the private room. The dessert order wouldn't come until later, but I could see the bread service being delivered, the butter probably imported from some French countryside. Everything top shelf, everything excessive, everything they would have never ordered for themselves. Time passed in a strange blur. I sipped my wine slowly, making it last. Jake checked in periodically, updating me like a sports commentator calling a game. They just got the second bottle of wine. Your sister just Instagram storied the lobster. I can hear them from here. They're having a great time. An hour and a half after I'd placed the order, the private room doors opened, and I heard the sound of chairs scraping, conversation winding down. They'd finished. They'd consumed every last bite of that $3,000 feast, probably thinking it was some generous gesture from the universe, never questioning their good fortune. Now came the reckoning. I watched as Maya flagged down a server, making the universal check please gesture. The server nodded, disappeared, and returned moments later with the leather bill folder. The kind of folder that usually contained normal dinner checks, the kind you could split 4 ways on credit cards without thinking twice. Through the glass panels, I saw Maya open the folder. Her entire body went rigid. She looked up at the server, said something. The server responded, gesturing at the bill. Maya's face went from confused to shocked to angry in the span of seconds. She pulled out her phone, probably using the calculator, checking the math as if that might change the total. Claire leaned over to look. Her jaw dropped. Jake materialized beside me again. Show time. The private room doors burst open and Maya strode out, Claire right behind her. They scanned the restaurant wildly, looking for someone, anyone who could explain this. The server followed, looking uncomfortable. There has to be a mistake, Maya's voice carried across the dining room, causing other diners to look up from their plates. We didn't order any of this. The server, a young woman in her 20s, maintained her professional composure. According to our records, ma'am, the pre-order was placed for your table 90 minutes ago. All items were confirmed and served. Confirmed by who? Claire demanded. Let me check. The server pulled out her tablet, scrolled. The order was placed through the bar. The name on the request was Harper. I heard my name carry across the restaurant, and even though I'd been expecting it, my heart rate kicked up. The moment of truth. Maya and Claire's heads swiveled toward the bar. Their eyes scanned the seats, passing over the birthday party, the business diners, landing finally on me. On Harper, sitting alone at the end of the bar, wine glass in hand, watching them with the calmest expression I'd ever managed. For a frozen second, nobody moved. We just stared at each other across the expanse of the monarch's dining room. Maya's face cycled through emotions too quickly to track. Claire's mouth opened and closed like she was trying to form words and failing. Then Maya started walking toward me, her heels clicking sharply against the hardwood floor. Claire followed, and behind them I could see other family members emerging from the private room, drawn by the commotion. I set down my wine glass carefully, folded my hands on the bar, waited. Maya reached me first, and her voice came out in a harsh whisper shout. Harper, what the hell did you do? I met her eyes steadily. I sent you a feast, a family feast, for the family table, the one I wasn't allowed to sit at. You can't just... Maya sputtered, her carefully composed exterior cracking. That bill is over $3,000. You can't just order food and stick us with... I didn't order it, I said calmly. You ate it. You enjoyed it. I was just Not at the table, remember? Claire pushed forward, her face flushed. Harper, this is insane. We can't pay this. Then I guess you'll have to figure it out. By now, the rest of my family had gathered around. James stood behind Maya, looking bewildered. Marcus had his phone out, probably calculating how to split a $3,000 check. My grandmother sat in a wheelchair that one of the servers had brought out, her face pale and confused. The kids clustered together, sensing the adult drama, but not understanding it. The restaurant manager appeared, a tall man in his 50s with silver hair and the kind of calm that came from dealing with difficult situations regularly. Ladies, gentlemen, perhaps we should discuss this in a more private... There's nothing to discuss, Maya cut him off, pointing at me. She ordered all that food without our permission and we're not paying for it. The manager looked at me. Miss, did you place this order? I requested that items be sent to that table, yes. And did you authorize payment? This was the moment, the legal grey area Jake had warned me about. I could back down, could say it was a misunderstanding, could pay the bill myself and retreat with whatever dignity I had left, or I could stand my ground. I authorized that food be sent to the family table, I said clearly. I was told this was a family dinner. I came to a family dinner. The fact that I wasn't allowed at the family table doesn't change that it was family who ate the food. The manager processed this, looking between me and Maya. I see, and you are... Her sister? Maya spat. She's my sister, and she's doing this out of spite because we... She stopped, seeming to realize that explaining why I wasn't at the table wouldn't help their case. Because you what? I asked softly. Because you told me this table was for family and to go find a seat? Because you've spent 32 years making sure I know I'm not really part of this family? Because you forgot to pick me up from school in the rain? Because you made me work your graduation party like hired help? Because you shut me out of every decision after Mum and Dad died? My voice had risen despite my efforts to stay calm. The restaurant had gone completely quiet. Other diners were blatantly staring now. Maya's face was red. That's not fair. We've always included you at the overflow table, at the kids' table, at a separate table outside, at the bar. I gestured around us, but never at the family table, never where it actually mattered. Claire tried a different tactic, her voice pleading. Harper, please, we have 5 kids between us. We can't afford this. If you're upset about tonight, about feeling left out, we can talk about that. But this, she gestured at the bill, this isn't the answer. You're right, I said. This isn't the answer. The answer would have been treating me like family for the past 13 years. This is just a consequence. The manager cleared his throat. I'm going to need to call the owner to sort this out. In the meantime, someone will need to settle this bill. We can't let anyone leave until... I'll pay it. Everyone turned. Jake had stepped forward from behind the bar, and he was pulling out his wallet. I'll cover it. Tonight's service was on me. Family drama, corporate event, whatever you want to call it. Just let them leave. Jake, you can't, I started, but he held up a hand. It's fine. Trust me. He handed his credit card to the manager, who looked relieved to have an out from this increasingly uncomfortable situation. But Maya wasn't done. No, absolutely not. Harper, you're going to pay this bill yourself, and then you're going to apologize to everyone here for ruining Dad's memorial dinner. Something in me snapped, not into anger, not into tears, but into a crystalline clarity I'd never felt before. I stood up from my bar stool, leaving the gift bag on the floor where it had sat all night. I picked up my purse. And I looked at Maya, at Claire, at my whole assembled family with their shocked faces and their full stomachs and their complete inability to see what they'd done wrong. "No," I said simply. "I'm not apologizing. I'm not paying. And I'm leaving. You can't just—" "Yes, I can." I turned to Jake. "Thank you for your kindness tonight. You're a good person." I pulled 2 50s from my wallet and laid them on the bar. "For my wine and your time." Then I looked at my family one last time. "You wanted a family table? Congratulations, you got one. I hope it was everything you wanted. I hope every bite was delicious, because that's the last thing I'll ever give any of you." I walked past Maya, past Claire, past my grandmother's wheelchair, and my nephews' and nieces' confused faces. I walked through the monarch's elegant dining room with my head high and my heart hammering, and I didn't look back. Behind me, I heard Maya's voice. "Harper! Harper! Don't you dare walk away from this!" But I already had. I made it to my car before the shaking started. Not from fear, not from regret, but from pure adrenaline. I sat in the driver's seat in that parking garage, hands gripping the steering wheel, and I started laughing. Not hysterical laughter, not bitter laughter, but the kind of laugh that comes from relief, from freedom. I'd done it. After 32 years, I'd finally done it. I drove home through Seattle's Saturday night traffic, parked in my usual spot behind my apartment building, and climbed the stairs to my 3rd-floor unit. My phone was already blowing up with texts and calls. I silenced it without looking. That night, I slept better than I had in years. The next morning, I woke to 47 missed calls and 30+ text messages. I made coffee, sat on my small balcony, even though it was November and cold, and finally opened my phone. The messages were a predictable mix. From Maya, 9:30 a.m. "Harper, we need to talk. What you did last night was unacceptable. Call me." From Claire, 10:15 a.m. "I can't believe you'd stoop this low. We're family. We need to fix this." From Grandma, 11 a.m. "Sweetheart, I know you're hurt, but this isn't the way. Let's talk." From James, 11:30 a.m. "Maya is really upset. You need to make this right." From Marcus, 12:15 p.m. "Not cool, Harper. Really not cool." And on and on. Cousins I barely knew, family friends who'd gotten dragged into the drama, everyone with an opinion about what I'd done, how I needed to apologize, how I'd crossed a line. Nobody asking why I'd done it. Nobody acknowledging that maybe, just maybe, I'd had a reason. I deleted the messages without responding, blocked most of the numbers, put my phone on Do Not Disturb. For 3 days, I existed in a bubble of blissful silence. I worked on my freelance projects. I read a book. I meal prepped for the week. I did normal, peaceful things that didn't involve anyone's judgment or expectations. On Wednesday, Maya texted from a new number. "Coffee. Thursday, 2 p.m, Starbucks on Pike. We need to talk face to face." I almost didn't respond, but some part of me, that same part that had kept showing up to Thanksgiving dinners and birthday parties despite everything, needed to see this through to the end. I typed back, "Fine." Thursday at 2 p.m, I walked into that Starbucks and found Maya and Claire already sitting at a corner table, matching expressions of stern, sisterly disapproval on their faces. They'd dressed for this like a business meeting. Maya in a blazer and slacks, Claire in a sweater dress. I'd worn jeans and a hoodie. I sat down without ordering anything. "You wanted to talk." "Talk." Maya folded her hands on the table, her voice tight with controlled anger. "Harper, we've talked it over. We're willing to forgive you for what happened at the Monarch." The statement was so absurd I almost laughed. "Forgive me?" "Yes, it was a misunderstanding. We didn't mean to make you feel excluded. We were just trying to keep the table organized. You know how chaotic big family dinners can be. Organised, right. Claire leaned forward, her voice softer, trying a different approach. Look, Harper, we know we haven't always been perfect. Maybe we have left you out sometimes. But you have to understand, you're so much younger than us. When Mum and Dad died, we were trying to handle everything. The estate, the funerals, keeping the family together. We did our best. Your best was shutting me out of every decision and giving me a box of old clothes as my inheritance. Maya's jaw tightened. We've been over this. We divided things fairly. You divided things how you wanted and told me it was fair. There's a difference. Silence fell over the table. Around us, the Starbucks hummed with normal afternoon activity, people ordering lattes, students studying, couples chatting. None of them knew they were sitting next to a family falling apart. Maya tried again. Look, we split the bill. Jake ended up not charging his card. Apparently he told the manager it was all a mix-up, and they agreed to reduce it to just what we actually ordered before all that. It cost us about $300, which we split between our families. We're not pressing charges or anything. We just want to move past this. Move past this, like we moved past Thanksgiving, or Claire's anniversary, or Dad's funeral decisions. Claire sighed, frustrated. Those were different. No, they weren't. I leaned forward, keeping my voice level. You've been organising me out of this family for 13 years. Saturday night wasn't a misunderstanding. It was the truth finally said out loud. You don't want me at the family table. You never have. That's not true, Maya said, but her voice lacked conviction. Isn't it? Name one family event in the last 10 years where I was actually included, not invited, not tolerated, but included. Where I had a real seat, where anyone asked my opinion, where I was treated like I mattered. They were silent. That's what I thought. Maya's facade cracked slightly. Fine. Maybe we haven't always made you feel as included as we could have. But you have to understand, Harper, you've always been so different from us. You went to community college instead of UW. You're a freelancer instead of having a real career. You're not married, you don't have kids. We just don't have much in common anymore. And there it was, the truth beneath the politeness. I wasn't excluded because I was younger, or because of logistics, or because of misunderstandings. I was excluded because I didn't fit their definition of success. I didn't check their boxes. I was the family member who didn't photograph well on Instagram. So that's what family means to you, I said quietly. Conditional, based on whether someone lives up to your standards. That's not what I meant. Yes, it is. I stood up. And you know what? That's fine. You're allowed to have standards. You're allowed to want certain things from your family members, but I'm allowed to not participate anymore. Claire stood too, her voice rising slightly. So that's it? You're just going to walk away from your family? I'm walking away from people who never saw me as family. There's a difference. We're your sisters. Maya was standing now too, drawing looks from other Starbucks patrons. We raised you after Mom and Dad died. You managed me. You tolerated me. You organised me into corners where I wouldn't inconvenience you. I picked up my bag. But you never loved me. Not really. Not the way family should. How can you say that? Claire's eyes were actually tearing up. We've always... At Lily's birthday, you made me sit alone in the backyard while the family was inside. At Thanksgiving, you put me at a card table in the kitchen. At Dad's memorial, you told me to find a seat somewhere else because the family table was full. My voice was steady, but my heart was pounding. Every single time, you made it clear I was the overflow, the extra, The one you'd accommodate if convenient but never prioritize. Maya's face was red. And your solution was to humiliate us at an expensive restaurant? To make us look like fools in front of Dad's friends? My solution was to stop accepting crumbs and calling it a meal. I met her eyes directly. You wanted a family dinner without me. You got one. I just made sure you paid the full price for it. You're being incredibly selfish. The accusation hung in the air. Selfish. The word they'd probably been thinking my whole life. Selfish for wanting to be picked up from school. Selfish for wanting a seat at Claire's graduation party. Selfish for wanting a say in my own parents' estate. Selfish for wanting to matter. Maybe I am, I said. Maybe choosing myself for the first time in 32 years is selfish, but I'd rather be selfish than invisible. Claire tried one more time, her voice almost pleading. Harper, we're trying. We're offering to start over. Come to Easter dinner next month. We'll make sure you have a seat at the main table. We'll include you in family decisions going forward. We're really trying here. A seat at the main table. I shook my head slowly. Do you hear yourselves? You're offering to include me like it's a privilege I have to earn. Like family is something you grant instead of something I inherently am. What more do you want? Maya threw up her hands. What would be enough for you? Nothing. I want nothing. The words came out clear and final. I don't want your seats, your tables, or your conditional invitations. I don't want to be the overflow you remember when it's convenient. I'm done. Done? Maya's voice went sharp. You're cutting us off because of one dinner? One dinner. Maya, you've been cutting me off my entire life. Saturday was just the first time I cut back. The words landed like stones. Maya and Claire stared at me, faces flushed with anger, and something that might have been guilt if either of them had been willing to examine it. I didn't wait for a response. I turned and walked out of that Starbucks, leaving my sisters sitting at that table with their cooling coffee and their indignation. My phone buzzed with messages within the hour, but I didn't read them. I went home, changed into comfortable clothes, made myself dinner, and watched the sunset from my balcony. Alone, peaceful, free. 6 months passed, 6 months of silence from Maya and Claire. No calls on my birthday, no texts on holidays, no accidental run-ins because I'd stopped going to places I knew they'd be. I blocked them on social media, changed my phone number after the first month of sporadic calls from relatives trying to play mediator. My life got quieter, smaller in some ways, but also fuller. I took on new freelance clients, expanded my business, started going to a yoga class on Tuesday evenings where I actually made friends. Real friends who chose to spend time with me. Not people who shared my DNA out of biological accident. I dated a little, nothing serious, but it was nice to remember what it felt like to be chosen. I didn't think about Maya and Claire every day. When I did, it wasn't with anger. It was with something closer to indifference, which felt like healing. On a Wednesday afternoon in May, I was working from my favourite coffee shop when I ran into Jake. He was in civilian clothes, jeans and a flannel shirt, carrying a book and looking surprised to see me. Harper? Holy shit, hi. I looked up from my laptop, smiled genuinely. Jake, what are you doing on this side of town? I live near here, actually, just grabbing coffee on my day off. He gestured at the empty chair across from me. Can I? Please. He sat, and we fell into easy conversation. He'd left the Monarch last month to pursue bartending at a cocktail bar in Capitol Hill. Better hours, better tips, and significantly less family drama, he said with a grin. Sorry about that, by the way. That whole night must have been legendary, he interrupted. Are you kidding? That was the most interesting shift I've had in 3 years. The staff still talks about it. Really? Oh yeah, you're a legend at the Monarch. The woman who ordered $3,000 of food for the table she wasn't allowed to sit at. It's like folk hero status. He took a sip of his coffee. How have you been since then? Seriously? Honestly? Better than I've been in years. No regrets? I thought about it. About that photo album still sitting in my closet, never delivered. About the family I'd lost, or maybe had never really had. About the silence where there used to be obligation. None. I spent years trying to earn a seat at a table that was never meant for me. Now I'm building my own table, and everyone who sits there, they're there because they want to be. Jake nodded slowly, understanding. That's beautiful, actually. It's survival. Maybe both. We talked for another hour, and when we parted ways, we exchanged numbers. Not romantic, just two people who'd shared a moment of unexpected rebellion and recognized something in each other. Sometimes that's enough. That evening, I got an email from an unfamiliar address. The subject line read, "Estate of Dorothy Harper, my grandmother's full name." I opened it with my heart in my throat. It was from a lawyer I didn't recognize, informing me that my grandmother was updating her will and wanted me to participate in a family discussion about estate planning. The meeting was scheduled for the following week. Maya and Claire would be there. I read the email twice, then closed my laptop. I didn't respond. My grandmother was 78 years old and in good health. This wasn't urgent. This was another attempt to pull me back into a family dynamic that had never served me, using guilt and obligation as weapons. I thought about what Jake had asked me. Any regrets? The truth was, I had one small regret. I regretted all the years I'd spent hoping they'd change. All the times I'd shown up with hope in my heart, only to be reminded of my place as the afterthought. I regretted giving them so many chances to hurt me. But walking away, ordering that $3,000 feast, finally choosing myself, those I didn't regret at all. I deleted the email without responding, made myself dinner, called one of my new friends from yoga class and made plans for the weekend. Went to bed at a reasonable hour, sleeping soundly without anxiety about upcoming family events, without dreading the next time I'd be made to feel small. A week later, I was back at that same coffee shop working on a client project when I looked up and saw my reflection in the window. I looked different than I had 6 months ago. Lighter somehow, not thinner or prettier or any of those superficial things, just unburdened. I used to think family meant showing up no matter how many times they pushed you away. I used to think love meant enduring, forgiving, coming back for more. But I learned something at that expensive restaurant, at that bar where I finally took control of my own narrative. Sometimes walking away from the table is the only way to stop being the one who's always left hungry. My phone buzzed. A text from Jake. "Drinks Friday? I'm working, but I can comp you a fancy cocktail. We can toast to being free." I smiled and typed back, "Sounds perfect." If you've ever felt invisible in your own family, if you've ever been the overflow, the afterthought, the one who doesn't quite fit, I want you to know this. It's not your fault. You're not too much or not enough. You're just at the wrong table. And walking away doesn't make you cruel. It makes you free. So here's my question for you. Have you ever felt like you didn't belong at the family table? Drop a comment below. And if this story resonated with you, hit that subscribe button, because you deserve to be at a table where you're celebrated, not tolerated. As for me, I'm done being the overflow. I'm done earning a seat that should have always been mine. I'm done with conditional love disguised as family obligation. I'm building my own table now, and everyone who sits there knows exactly why they were invited.